my blues, I stand before you, resilient, stronger than power, soft as a flower. I know the hour, I am the times. It's the strength for me, it's the strength, it's the legacy.
Well, good evening. So glad to have you all here. Our first live virtual Unerased Black Women Speak event of the new year. I'm Gwen McKinney, your host and Unerased creator. So happy New Year. This is quite a year we're coming into. And tonight's topic is Politics and Policies 2022. And we'll be joined by two of the nation's brightest stars in policy circles, Judith Brown Deannis, Executive Director of the Advancement Project, which combines advocacy with legal defense for racial and social justice. Also, Donna Edwards, a lawyer, a philanthropic advisor, and former member of Congress who represented Maryland's 4th District. We'll also have a band leader who has been beating the drum on voting rights and preservation of voting rights. And here she is, actually. Hey, sis. First of all, let me just say, I am honored to have you because I know you are going 24/7, or shall I say 25/8, right? Welcome. Listen.
Hi, Happy New Year.
I want to just say, as I said, voting rights, beating the drum, give us our mark. This is Melanie Campbell, shall I say, the fearless leader of the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation, and also the convener of my girls, the Black Women's Roundtable, and a partner of Unerased. So, Mel, I'm going to turn over the mic to you. Tell us, what is the state of play in voting rights, and what do we need to do over the next several days? There you go.
Well, thank you, Gwen, and special shout out to Donna and Judith who will be coming on. Can't wait to hear their analysis of a lot of what's happening in the state of play from their perspective as well. But the voting rights, we're at a place now where we're pushing for federal voting rights legislation just to push back on all of the voter suppression laws that have been passed that are many coined the phrase modern day Jim Crow 2.0 laws, and people want to say, oh, it's not that bad, but it is that bad. It's just a modern day version of what it looks like to suppress the vote and roll back the clock when it comes to our ability to control our own destinies at the end of the day, because politics impacts every aspect of our life, whether we want it to or not. So to not be able to have access to the ballot, to not be able to, in some states like Georgia, be able to stop them from, and I say them, those who are in power on a state level, to be able to actually decide who gets to count the votes, right? In Georgia, the Georgia law that was passed last year, not only did it make it harder for people to vote, but organizers like me and others who are out here organizing and folks on the ground in the states who are organizing in the state of Georgia, if you offer somebody, and they have a lot of problems with the long lines, as an example, they can, if you offer somebody a bottle of water, they can lock you up. Is what that law does. The other thing that law does is that if the state that's run right now, I'm not being partisan, just factual, that's run by a Republican governor, Republican Secretary of State, Republican House, State House, and State Senate, all Republican controlled on state level. If they don't like how an election results are, they can come back and then override the local boards of elections And guess where that's going to happen? That's going to happen in parts of the state of Georgia where you have a large Black and brown population, urban centers, so that they can decide, I don't like the results, and then just decide that Fulton County, which is one of the largest counties, we don't think you did that right, so we're going to take that over. So when you heard former President Trump say, found those 11,000 so and so many votes, they can do that now with the law that's on the books. They couldn't do it. That's why the Secretary of State couldn't do it. He couldn't do it legally, right? So that's part of what's at stake. Now, fast forward to what's happening on the federal level. Well, we need to get the voting rights, federal voting rights laws passed, and the Senate is a stumbling block. So we need folks that are watching out here to weigh in, because you don't have enough votes yet to get that vote to happen because of the rules that you have a couple of Democrats, Senator Sinema from Arizona and Senator Manchin. Those are the ones that we know that are more vocal, who don't want to see rule changes, so we can have a majority rule vote. So
let me ask you, what should we do? Give folks,
call their senators. That's what I'm saying. We need you to weigh in with your senators in your state. If your senator is doing the right thing and ready to make the changes, then thank them for it. But call 202-224-3121. 202-224-3121. Gwen, we're working and supporting Martin King III and Andrea King, his wife, who were partnered up, built a coalition to really use, and then of course Sister Bernice, Elder Bernice King in Atlanta, the King Center. Everybody's pushing for this to be the weekend and Monday, which is Dr. King's, Martin Luther King Jr.'s commemoration of his birthday, right? That we want you. Normally we say call Monday through Friday. No, you call through the weekend. You keep calling that Senate office, because they're going to have to work over the weekend, King holiday weekend, and tell them two things. One, we want to make sure that you vote for the John Lewis Voting Rights Restoration Act, and now they've combined the bill, and the Freedom to Vote Act. They're now one bill. Pass that bill and make the changes, whatever you need to do with the rules, so that you can get the vote passed and put into law. And that's what I don't want to go into all of the details of
but
that's what we need people to do. And we need to do that tomorrow, do that Saturday, do that Sunday, do that on King Holiday. On King Holiday, we want you to find a way to weigh in on voting rights. That's how we need to celebrate Dr. King's birthday this year. And we need to demand of the people we put in office to do the right thing, because our democracy is at stake. Our children's future is at stake. I'm so upset, Gwen. I'm sorry. I'm trying to calm myself down.
I hear you.
What's the shenanigans that's going on in Washington right now with the people that we helped put in office, who don't want to do the right thing, holding on to a rule versus making sure that they protect our right to vote. Black people have always had to have our voting rights protected by federal legislation. It has not changed. And if this voting rights bills are not passed, states' rights will prevail. And that is not good for Black and brown people. And it's not good for this nation. Even though some people don't think if they come for you, is this just coming for you? No, if they come for me, they're coming for you next. That's historic and factual. So we got to fight the fight like we've never fought it before. I'm tired, but I'm going to still keep fighting.
Okay, thank you, sis. And I know you got more things to do. I thank you for joining. We promised you we would just take 5 minutes from your evening. And folks, 202, what's the number to call the Senate?
202-224-3121, and go to blackwomentake.action.org. blackwomentake.action.org, and you can stay and find a way, and we'll make sure that we keep you informed on how you can join us in this fight to protect our voting rights.
So we're with you, sis. Hang in there, and thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night. So we are now at a point where we are 7 minutes and 7:12, and I am trying to make sure that we have a packed day. And April, what I would like to do is just quickly, as we introduce Judith Brown and Donna Edwards, Melanie was very supportive of the launch of Primetime 55 Plus, celebrating older, mature, able Black women who often carry a triple burden. And these two sisters are part of our Primetime 55 Plus directory. Let's just take a quick look at one of our little commercials about Primetime.
Black women are trailblazers who overperform in every field. But Black women, especially those over 55, are mostly missing from influential primetime cable news. Primetime 55 Plus showcases the accomplishments of Black women 55 and older. Join us. Go to primetime55.com, click on 55 Plus directory, and apply.
Well, to keep this ball rolling, we've got the two women of the hour. I am so thrilled to welcome the Honorable Donna F. Edwards and Judith Brown Dianis. And sisters, I'm really appreciate that you both are here. And I'm saying a hearty welcome from Unerased.
Hello.
Hello, and thank you. Happy New Year to everybody.
Yeah, there, and I'm smiling, but there is a full panoply of things. And I see one of our major voices, influencers, in Kichi Taifa, who's just she's beating the drum too for us. A lot going on. Melanie talked about Voting Rights Act and where we are and the fight that's happening. And there's some other things that are just looming on the table in addition to the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. We've got things like the January 6th Congressional panel, the COVID pandemic, which is surging like an evil zombie, the Justice Department's moves on some of these lawless figures, ranging from Donald Trump to the racist insurrectionists. And we got federal action or inaction to really stem the tide of racial violence by both police and vigilantes against Black people, threats to democracy in general. So, I'm just setting the table here. First, I think we'll start with Donna. What do you think are the two most consequential measures on the congressional agenda right now?
Well, there are the consequential measures that have been done already in early 2021 to deal with this COVID pandemic. But I think most importantly right now, and I've always believed from the beginning, was to get voting rights done. We know that following the January 6th insurrection, that was on the heels of people contesting the vote count from the November election forward with and I will say it, lawless president of the United States in the form of former President Donald Trump. And so from the beginning, I have believed that doing the right thing on voting rights and securing voting rights for all Americans, both shoring up the Voting Rights Act, but also putting into place things that would actually enable and enhance people's right to vote, ensuring mail-in voting and adequate numbers of drop boxes and election day a holiday, and all of those things that actually encourage people to vote. To me, that should have been at the top of the agenda, and it should remain at the top of the agenda today. And I think both as a moral imperative, because it's the right thing to do, but also for Democrats as a political imperative. If voters who are largely Black and brown voters are restricted from going to the polls to cast their vote, that will impact the ability of Democrats to retain control of the House and the Senate, and then eventually the White House. And so I think it is both moral and political. And, the days are dark, though, and we should discuss that a little bit more. And I'll let Judith get into that. But we should talk about exactly where we are in this moment.
Yeah. And Judith, you're based in DC, and you certainly have your hands in the national policy and advocacy, but you also uniquely partner with and support advocates on the ground who are doing the work, sometimes that people don't know about, that often trickles up. So tell us how any key legislative proposal that's top of mind for you, that's on the table right now, is impacting on Black and Brown communities locally.
Well, Gwen, I want to pick up on where Donna left off about voting rights, because we're getting ready to go to trial in our case in Florida, where we're challenging the voter suppression law in Florida, and that will be going to trial in a couple of weeks. And then our case in Georgia, challenging the voter suppression law there, probably will not go to trial before the midterms.
Wow.
And so what we are going to be stuck with, that kind of big mama jamma of voter suppression laws, and they will have to operate and execute an election, midterm elections, with that law in place. And so that is very problematic, because we know that the restriction on the vote will really, first of all, midterms are hard anyway, right? For turning out the vote, especially for Black communities, we see the numbers go down. But then if we add to it that we're going to have these extra barriers, and I just want to say this, one of the things that we keep getting told is that we should just turn out more voters, right? I hate that, because yes, turning out more voters means maybe you can win big, win more, so that you can change the laws. But it also means that Black people, it's like a message to Black people, like, yep, there's going to be barriers, and y'all got to jump over those higher barriers. Get rid of the barriers. And so, so that's one, I think. So that is consequential, and we will see it play out. We're seeing in places, actually in Wisconsin, there was just a judge who just decided today that drop boxes are unlawful in the state of Wisconsin.
Ooh.
Altogether, drop boxes are unlawful. So that has to get done. The Freedom of Vote Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. And then second, the thing that I guess that is not moving is the policing piece.
Yeah.
Tens of millions of people across the globe took to the streets in 2020.
It just sort of faded out of
Stop
existence.
police violence. And then it just the Justice and Policing Act was introduced. The House is one thing, getting anything to the Senate is impossible, really. But the conversation stopped. It's like it never happened. And this is what Black people go through all the time, is that we are urging and demanding justice. And then it's just silence. Like we're going to forget about it until the next time. And so that is one of the things that I think is something that needed to move. The best part of that bill, in my opinion, was getting rid of qualified immunity so that police officers could be sued and held accountable. But it's not moving anywhere.
It's not moving. Do you think it'll move?
No.
Before the midterm?
I don't think it will move because, number one, it's not a priority for the White House. Number two, it's police. Police unions are very powerful in this country. And we have an infatuation in this country with police and law and order. And so we're in this moment where we're seeing also like these cultural fights, right? And part of that cultural fight right now is around law and order.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating to me because I remember years ago when I worked on the Violence Against Women Act with Joe Biden when he was in the Senate, that one of the things that drove us to do that was police inaction on domestic violence cases. Police would show up and then they'd just drive the guy around the corner or they wouldn't do anything at all. And so Biden at that time was actually motivated by that. And there were tons of lawsuits against police departments all around the country, millions and millions of dollars. Well, we're facing actually the same thing as Black people and one of the reasons for reform. And so it isn't about, whether you like or dislike the police. It's about saying we want law enforcement that is trained and that functions in our community in a way that is respectful of communities, and doesn't do damage to the Constitution. And so I don't understand the reluctance of the White House and of Senate Democrats, frankly, because I guess it's moved through the House, but Senate Democrats in acting on this, because to me, it's about being supportive of law enforcement if they're doing the right thing, but not when they're abusing communities and they're committing the kinds of atrocities in our communities that are unacceptable. And so we do need a voice coming from the White House, but also—
Donna, hold it. You just teed up my next question. I'm getting ready to ask both of you, and you go first. Let's give a report, the 1 year in, let's give the Biden administration, Joe Biden, a report card. What is the grade? And I'm going to ask you to give him an overall grade. And if there's some text grades that you want to offer between an A and an F, and we all know what that is. What's the grade you would give him, Donna?
Well, if he had an A, we'd have all of these things done. So we know that we can't go there. But I think he's probably in the B range. And the reason that I say that is because there are a number of these issues that don't have anything to do with whether the White House is doing a thing, but have everything to do about the absolute roadblock in the United States Senate that neither Joe Biden or other Democrats have been able to block. And so, and I think there are also some factors that are out there, like with COVID. This new variant that's come forward is different from the old one. We seem to be getting through that with the measures, financial and others, that were put into place. And now it feels like we're almost back, not quite square one, but maybe we're on that 4 square, we're on number 2 square.
So what's the grade that you'd give them on COVID?
So, well, on COVID, that's so complicated. It's just so complicated. I mean, I still think it is around the B range. Look, getting that vaccine out, rolling out the vaccine, how do you control for a third of the country that believes in, doesn't believe in science and refuses to get a vaccine? So I think that is something that, I don't know, Republicans could have done something about to try to convince those people. But once all that disinformation has rolled out of there, I'm not really sure that the president of the United States has a lot more control there. But there are things that the administration still needs to do. I mean, we need more people vaccinated. We need more masks out there. We need testing. All of these things are in full control of the administration. And so, they can't get an A grade on COVID.
Okay, Judith, you got you're giving the grades. What's the report?
I agree. Not an A. I'm headed towards a B minus. And, my daughter knows in our household, we don't do Bs. So B minus for him. Now, the thing that's moving him up from a C to a B minus with me are things like appointments, right? Judicial appointments, right? So and Gwen, like, this is Elaine Jones, where I come from. This is Elaine's thing, 75% women, 65% of them people of color. There's going to hopefully be a Black woman, Nancy Abudu, who I know, who's a lawyer, might be the first African-American woman sitting on the 11th Circuit. These are all important things.
So you're going to get an A on that.
So, I mean, doing
or A minus.
That's why, right? So A minus on that, and that's why I'm, and you got Vanita and Kristen and all that is great. Okay. I just want to raise up that I've been having a little trouble with, like, Kamala, about the way in which she doesn't get to shine.
Absolutely.
Enough. And I feel like she is being marginalized. And that is problematic for me. And again, of course, the policing stuff brings the grade down.
Okay, so
but Judith, can I just follow on that?
And then we want to get the audience into people. So
go ahead.
You can follow up. You're going to have more time. Audience, because I know people are saying, "Boy, they're pretty good graders. I wish I was in their class." Okay, audience. If there's anyone out there who wants to give Biden a grade, I'm going to let you give them on 3 subjects. He says, Black folks, you have my back, I have yours. What's the grade on having Black folks' backs to Joe Biden? What's the grade you're going to give? Just drop it in your comment space. Let me hear from you. Having the backs, give a grade A through F on managing the COVID pandemic. What's the grade? And Judith already teed it up. Appointments to federal departments, agencies, and courts. What's the grade? Okay. And let's see here. DOJ, well, and DOJ too. Yes, we know. Okay. Oh, on voting rights, he gets a C. Thank you. Linda, give us more. What about on having Black folks' backs and on managing the pandemic? Dean says C for having Black folks back. Thank you very much, Dean Watson. Lisa says too soon to grade. She's giving an incomplete. Is that an incomplete, Lisa? I guess.
Look at Nikichi's grades.
Alyssa gives him a C. Okay. And Kichi, C. We have had to work too hard on the administration on criminal justice on having Black folks back. A D. No movement on policing, so she does agree with you, Judah, but she's a harder grader. No executive order. Okay. The Philadelphia Commission for Women gives having Black folks back a C. I know that's Javita. A C minus, I'm sorry. Okay, voting rights.
I just want to say my grade was averaging it out. Now, if you'd asked me for these specific ones, I would have had a D.
Okay, I got you. So thank you, audience. Oh, there's still criminal justice. It's criminal justice a D, and on appointments a B. Okay. All right, folks. Thank you for that kind of feedback. I want to come back, Donna. I promised we'd be back to you, and we are. So I want to ask you: is Congress broken? And is there anything that can be done about it? That's an important question. The Senate seems to be the chamber of no action, no whatever. So what's the deal?
Well, I know when I was in the House, we used to say that the Senate is the place where all good things go to die. Because, one piece of legislation after another has moved through the House of Representatives where there's a majority rule in the House. We're used to majority rules over there. And when you have the majority, you can move things through. And then over in the Senate, it's fallen apart. You know what? I would love to just sit and blame Republicans all day long for that. But I expect that from that crowd that's there. What I do not expect, for example, what we saw today with Senator Sinema from Arizona standing on the floor of the House, repudiating, I believe, the President of the United States as he was on his way to Capitol Hill to put a nail in the coffin of voting rights. That I will not accept, because I know with the voters in Arizona and especially the base of the party in Arizona and West Virginia that make sure that those members can have their seats and have their chairmanships, that there's no excuse for them standing in the way of voting rights. And I think that we have to call it like it is when it comes to that. And so is the Congress broken? There are things, I could go down a list of things that are broken with the committee structure, with the leadership structure that are broken, but they are not things that cannot be fixed. Okay. And with leadership. But one of the biggest fixes has to be getting rid of that filibuster rule. It is arcane. It doesn't really have any place in politics. It's not embedded in the Constitution. It's not validated even by the Senate rules themselves, because it has been broken so many times. Just a month ago, the filibuster was broken in support of raising the debt limit. Yeah. And yet today there was an excuse not to break the filibuster for voting rights, which are embedded in the Constitution.
Well, so the question for Judith, who is both a litigator and an advocate and someone who revs up the people who are fighting in the street. If Congress doesn't act and voter suppression measures remain in place, what can we do? What can communities do? What can voters do to protect their vote?
So so this is hard, right? Because those of us who litigate will be litigating, but voters, I think at the local level, there's a number of things. Number one is everybody needs to make sure, and these are things I hate to say because I want the barriers to be gone, but I need people to protect themselves at the same time, right? So people need to make sure they know the rules of voting, right? Like your local election officials or your Secretary of State's office, you need to go to their website, understand where I have to register, understand how you're going to be voting, and you might want to wait a little bit because there's going to be fights, right? Two is fight back at the state level, right? Like state legislatures are in session right now, and they are going to be passing really bad voter suppression laws. And so you not only should be calling your U.S. senator, because even if you have a Republican and a Democrat, call both of them. And then at the state level, you need to be weighing in with your state senators and representatives because those state laws are going to pass also. And that's what we're fighting, right? Is what's happening at the state level. So that's another thing. The other thing, and I will tell you, the thing that I'm most worried about, Donna knows the kind of work we do at Advanced Project. The thing I'm most worried about is what's going to happen at these local level with these local election officials.
Yes.
And that there are secretaries of state races this year. Folks need to tune in. Remember Catherine Harris. Remember in Georgia, there's Secretary of State races, 13 states where Trump big lie supporters are running for Secretary of State because they want to be the ones to rule over how elections happen. And so we've got to be engaged in those elections, but also watching what they're doing.
So to take this to another level, here's a question for both of you. Black women are always in the vanguard of every movement for social change. Yet, misogyny, sexism, racism, especially, the whole host of things in legislation and policy, make us more likely to be sexually assaulted, to go missing, to be killed. And this is both in terms of legislation on the state level and practices, not just policies. The numbers are even worse if you're talking about Black trans and gender identity women. How can we ensure that Black women's lives are valued? What we start, Donna, you can kick it off.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's such a heavy question because at the same time that we've been in the vanguard, we also are on the front lines when bad things go bad. When we talk, almost every single policy issue that you can identify, the most vulnerable people in that issue tend to be Black women. And we're also still the ones always on the front defending everybody else's rights. And then they get to stand on top of our shoulders in order to exercise those rights. And so it's complicated. And in some ways, it can almost make you want to give up because you're like, oh my gosh, I do all of this stuff. And what do I get out of it? But we have to continue to fight. And I mean, elect our own. I mean, making sure and really not ever counting any of us out, whether it comes to local office or federal office. Don't count yourself out before a voter has a chance to cast a vote for you. And so I just think, when we have more women, more Black women in leadership roles, more Black women in the media, more Black women in state legislatures, that is what's going to make a difference for Black people. Because when we do a thing, we actually protect our families and our entire communities.
Well, on that point, Donna, and both Judith and I happen to be residents of Maryland. Donna Edwards, who was the former Congresswoman for the 4th District, and I happen to live in the 6th District. And by the way, I am representing an organization which is a 501c3, nonpartisan organization. So I'm just speaking from an educational, informative standpoint, just to let our listeners and viewers know, you are jumping back into the race. You are jumping back into the ring, shall I say, like the Lions Den or something. But you are running for Congress again for your 4th district seat. And to the audience, to those who live in Maryland, guess what? There are 10 members of the Maryland delegation, including the 2 senators. And how many of them are women? 0. So, Donna, why are you coming back?
Well, it's such a great question, Gwen. I really appreciate it. And really, for information purposes, I am running for Congress in the 4th Congressional District. But I've been sitting on the outside for almost 6 years now. And it's actually given me a perspective of the institution and the processes and, the way that we perceive it from the outside that actually makes me want to be in the fight and engaged. And especially, I think I was really moved by January 6th of last year, and seeing that and seeing the levels to which people who are racist and xenophobic and homophobic and misogynist are willing to take this country made me want to defend it. And so in order both to serve my congressional district, the 4th Congressional District, but also to serve the country, I think now is a really important time to be back in, to be engaged, and to play a leadership role in helping to shape the future of the country.
And Judith, because I know the Advancement Project is also a nonprofit C3 organization.
Thank you.
And you are very much.
We do have a C4, but I'm here for the C3.
Oh, okay. But,
and I have loved both of your C3s.
Yes, you
yes.
have.
We appreciate that too. So, Judith, the question, Donna has, we need members in the Congress, regardless of what party they are,
right, who
speak to the interests of our communities and our constituencies. So how does the Advancement Project, looking at, because you've worked on voting rights on every level, even down to motor voter. I remember when you were a young lawyer, that was one of your first big campaigns, motor voter. How can we make sure that our constituents, especially Black women, are able to put people into office who represent and speak to their voice? What are your suggestions?
Yeah, I do think this, I want to say this, that civic engagement and democracy is a 365-day-a-year experiment, right? So it doesn't mean that you go vote on November whatever and then walk away, right? But the day in, day out work of accountability is important. And so, and Black women tend to do this anyway, right? but I think to Donna's point about, like, when we fight for our communities and we fight for our families. And so being able to be, for example, these fights over CRT and whether or not we can teach critical race theory in schools, really, which is not about critical race, but really is an erasure of the history of white supremacy is what they're really trying to get at, because they don't want to teach the truth. And so those kind of like showing up at the school board meetings, and holding those people accountable. It is that we have got to not, and even when we elect someone, if it's a Donna or if it's a Biden, you have to keep holding them accountable so that they know you're there, so that they hear from you and you're saying, no, that's not the direction, or you got the wrong priorities. You should have done voting rights before you did the infrastructure piece or whatever. But we cannot just vote and walk away. You have to keep involved and keep their feet to the fire every day.
Well, I think that keeping the feet to the fire is a really important thing. And we're starting to get to our wrap up. I saw one message in there. Thank you, sis. You got your mammogram. Our last Facebook Live we did on breast cancer vigilance for Black women, 365, 24/7. And I was Rev. I felt like a fraud because I said, when was the last time I got a mammogram? Right after that show, I scheduled my mammogram. And for those who I'm making it public, for those who don't know, got my mammogram, had to come back and get a biopsy. And I have found out that I am now part of a auspicious club that no one wants to be part of. But once you were in it, you got to support. And I found out that I was positive for breast cancer. And so I saw one of my friends, I see that Nkichi said she scheduled her mammogram. Yes, sister.
Well, I saw your note, and I am going to schedule mine.
Please.
So, yes.
And I say that because it's critical, and this was not the topic. We'll have another subject on health equity, but it is so important that Black women take care of our health because our diagnosis for breast cancer tend to be later. In my case, I'm lucky that it is relatively early, and I want everyone to just send up whatever flares they can. Why is voting important for health equity for women? Thank you, Selena Mendy Singleton, or Mendy. I guess you're not using Singleton. Good question. She wants to throw that out there to you all. And Allison Davis, she said she just had hers yesterday. Thank you for pushing us. Yes, Allison. Oh, and then another sister. Okay, you guys, we'll do another thing on the roll call on the mammogram.
I'm telling you, they're rolling.
Yeah, because I have to add my roll call in there.
Yeah, but seriously, folks, because it's not a good message to get a call from the doc saying, "Oh, we need you to come back because you need a biopsy." But anyway, not for me. Let's shift back. Health equity. Selena asked, why is voting important to health equity for women? And that will be one of our wind down questions for both of you. We'll start with you, Judith, and then round up with Donna on that. Why is voting important for health equity?
Well, first of all, hello, Selena Mendy. Long time no see. Anyway, but it is important because the people that we vote in have to vote to move the things we need to keep ourselves and our families healthy, right? Whether it's Affordable Care Act, whether it's even the infrastructure pieces about lead, right? And getting good water, right?
Yes.
These are key things. And let's not forget the abortion issue, right? It is huge and looming what is going to happen to abortion in this country and the right to choose. And so who we vote has to carry the water to make sure that we get the equity that we need. I will tell you that just lastly, one of the things that I've been very concerned about with this pandemic is that the pandemic exposed the inequities of access to healthcare. It's not just about insurance, but it's about where doctors are located, which hospitals have enough beds for people when we're sick. In Prince George's County, I've been looking at the numbers and we do not have enough doctors. And so having people that represent us that think about this COVID thing is going on, but how are we going to fix the infrastructure to make sure that our people don't go through this again?
Yeah. Donna, what about you? How does health equity impact?
Well, first of all, point of personal pride, I want to say hello to Selena, my former staff person.
And classmate, right?
That's right. Love you. And so the part of the reason it's important is because if you look at the health disparity on every major chronic illness, and I'll just take our own region right here and in the county that we live in, that despite higher incomes among Black people, we still suffer from every single major chronic illness that Black people experience. And when you vote for people who have your interests in mind, they go into Congress not having to be taught about health equity, but knowing it, and then, with the idea of doing something about it. And so these questions, and, Judith pointed out, clean water, clean air. There are so many of our schools that are located in urban centers where the air quality is so bad that our children are going to school every day with their lungs filling up with with carbon dioxide and with all of the things that are in the carbon emissions that are impacting their asthma, their respiratory quality, and their quality of life. We have schools that have mold in them, and you know what our students are doing? They're breathing all those mold spores. And so there are so many different ways where voting really has an impact on your day-to-day life, whether you're voting in a local election or you're voting in a federal election.
And as we wrap up, we could be here for another hour and still only touch on things. As we wrap up, I want to first of all thank you both, because you both of you bring so much to the work and the importance, and I am proud to be associated with you each in different ways.
Can I just wait, Gwen? I just have to tell people that Gwen was the first person who gave me media training when I was a baby lawyer, and she taught me everything I know about. When I'm on TV, she's the one that taught me you got to wear color, you got to have 3 points, stick to the points. So I just want to thank you.
Well, and I thank you. You look, you make me look good if I was a teacher. So I definitely want to tip my hat to Judah, because she's all grown up now. And you can't keep pulling that. When I was a little young girl, no,
part of the Unerased community.
So anyway, she's part of our prime time now, 55 plus. I'm not going to out your age, but anyway. But I'd like to say that to learn more about Primetime 55 plus, go to the directory, because both Donna and Judith are there. And their stellar accomplishments in the deep dive they have, some things that you want to know. You want to know more about the Advancement Project. You can learn about it there. You want to know about the things that Donna Edwards has done, whether as an elected official or as a person who cares about philanthropy and making sure that advocacy groups that are deserving get resources. They're there. So I would like to also say that as we wind down, next month, I'm excited, we are going to be launching a new initiative called She Wrote the Book. Go ahead, April, show them that. She wrote the book, and we're going to be featuring Marita Golden, who is a literary icon, and also Tracy Sherrard, who is a national cheerleader in the publishing world and the head of Amistad Books. And we'll be talking about about Black women, authors, writers, readers, booksellers, and most of all, Black women who support these entities. So stay tuned for that. You'll hear more about She Wrote the Book. And then as we wind down, I am looking forward to, hey, Karen Mulhauser, great to see you. I'm trying to stay on script, but I'm also looking at what's coming up on the screen. So I want to spotlight our podcast, which came out yesterday, and it is called Breast Cancer Vigilance 365 24/7. Little did I know that the week that podcast came out, I would be getting information that was spurred by doing the podcast. Check it out. You can subscribe to Unerased Podcasts, Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, on YouTube. You can also go to our website, unerasedbws.com, and there's a lot of information on that page for the podcast. And you can listen to the podcast there too. So actually, I want to also thank, because I never get a chance to do this, our what do you call it? Our A team. April McKellar Perry, Antoinette Minor, Alyssa Davis, and Alex Kavoris, who are responsible for putting this together. I'm just an upfront person. They are making the things happen behind the scenes. Thank you. And I believe we have another commercial about our podcast. Hang in there, and then also don't go anywhere, because our theme song, which features I think both of these ladies are featured, and Unerased will close us out. So with that, I'd like to thank Judith, and I'd like to thank Donna.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good
And
to see
thank
you.
everyone. And hang in there. Stay, watch our commercial, and watch our theme song.
Black women are fully present in all meaningful aspects of our daily lives, yet too often we are left out of the conversation when mainstream media seeks to tell our stories. That is why we decided to launch Unerased, Black Women Speak, a podcast series dedicated to elevating our voices and celebrating our accomplishments. Subscribe today to Unerased Black Women Speak, available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and online at unerasedbws.com.
It's the strength for me, it's the strength, it's the legacy, it's the faith, it's the history, unerased, of a sisterhood, of a race. It's the strength for me, it's the strength, it's the legacy, it's the faith, it's the history, unerased, of a sisterhood, of a race. In my shoes, listen to my blues. I stand before you, resilient, stronger than power, soft as a flower. I know the hour, I am the times. It's the strength for me, it's the strength, it's the legacy, it's the faith, it's the history, unerased, of a sisterhood, of a race. It's the strength for me, it's the strength, it's the legacy, it's the faith, it's the history, unerased, of a sisterhood, of a race. Appreciation, I need to know you know who I am and what I've achieved. Honor my journey, you could learn from me. Where there's a ruse, I speak the truth. I'm looking at you with respect and appreciation. I want for you the very best in all situations. When we get together, I feel so alive. No lie. Oh, we don't put up with neglect. Yeah, we are done risking our necks. We deserve all the love that we desire. That's by design. It is the strength for me. It's the strength. It's the legacy. It's the faith. It's the history. Unerased, of a sisterhood, of a race. It's the strength for me. It's the strength. It's the legacy. It's the faith. It's the history. Unerased, of a sisterhood, of a race. It's the strength for me. It's the strength. It's the legacy.